Welcome back to Cure Connections. We are talking today about lung cancer, and in this segment we are focusing on education and support. We are really fortunate to have with us Chris Draft, who may be best known to many of you as the linebacker for the National Football League. What you may not realise is that for more than a decade, Chris has also used his celebrity status to raise awareness about lung cancer. Chris's wife Keisha, an otherwise healthy non-smoker, died of lung cancer in 2011 at the age of 38. Also with us in the studio today is Carly Ornstein with the American Lung Association and Dr. Leora Horn from Vanderbilt University. Today we're talking about lung cancer again. Welcome back to Cure Connections, Dr. Horn, Dr. Ornstein, Chris. We're going to be hearing a lot more about your personal story with lung cancer in a later segment, but tell us why you think that the face of lung cancer, why the whole situation and awareness needs to change.
Why does awareness need to change? You know, for the last 40 years plus, the only thing that people have seen is a prevention campaign. And so when our survivors or our other advocates, they ask, well, what do we have to do? How do we change the face of lung cancer? How do we make people care about lung cancer? Well, the key is to position it where people can care. So the prevention campaign is really a personal responsibility campaign. It's saying it's all about you. It's saying if you can change, then we can deal with lung cancer. But cancer is compassion. Cancer is saying there are things that you can't do. That's why we need help. That's where you hear somebody that we need your help to fight for a cure. And so when we're changing the face of lung cancer, what we're doing is we're acknowledging that prevention is good, that prevention is ideal, but it's not enough. I found it out with my wife, who was 37 years old when she was diagnosed and passed a year later when she was 38, was in amazing shape. And we found out that anyone could get it, right? Well, and if anyone can get it, you know, someone who's never smoked, somebody who's in amazing shape, then it's not good enough to just say that prevention is all you can do. And so that means that the full cancer game plan is prevention, early detection, treatment, research, and survivorship.
Now, many of the people you're talking to, you're preaching to the converted. They're in the lung cancer field, they're working with patients, they may have already been diagnosed, they're in high-risk categories. But for the average Joe guy on the streets who doesn't really know anybody with lung cancer, hasn't been exposed to it, what are some of the misconceptions for the average guy, girl out on the street about the disease?
Yeah, well, it's not just the people that already know, because the people that already know are saying, well, why don't people know more about lung cancer? And it's because it's only been a prevention campaign. And so it's both groups that we have to make sure that we educate people better. So how would they know? You know, I tell folks all the time, I said, I didn't wake up in the morning like, whoa, I know about lung cancer. It was through a personal connection with my wife. And so unless we're making it clear to people, unless we're educating them about that anyone can get it, then we can't be surprised when they don't know it.
But the other side to the coin is that we know that many patients who get lung cancer tend to be older, sicker. There's a stereotype for all cancers about the kind of typical patient. And your wife clearly was definitely not in that category. And many people who hear about lung cancer, they know what they know, which is very limited from years ago, that many patients with lung cancer presented late in the disease. The options for cure were not often even there. But we've heard already from Dr. Horn that we've come a long way, and we have even further to go with newer imaging, newer molecular testing, newer treatments. Do you think that the fact that we have come so far, that one of the problems is that people just don't realize where we are today versus where we were 20 years ago?
Well, again, people aren't in the lung cancer space unless they're in the lung cancer space. You know, I tell our advocates all the time that I don't have to convince me in December of 2010. That's when my wife was diagnosed in lung cancer. When we're going out and speaking to the public, if we want them to care, I need to talk to them like it's November of 2010.
Right.
And that's before I knew anything. And so lung cancer was not on my radar. So that's how we have to approach people. If we want them to know more, then we have to help them. We have to educate them. If the only thing that they know is one thing, all that does, it just tells us what we need to do to fill it in. So if they don't feel like there's hope, it's because they don't know more. Right? And so it means we have to help them with that. If they don't only know that a certain group can get lung cancer, well, we have to help and make them more aware that other people can get it, that anyone can get it.
Right.
All right? So it's not just something that randomly happens. It's not that they just wake up and all of a sudden they know more about lung cancer. That's not going to happen.
Now,
we have to help them with that.
Now, just to be devil's advocate, we're talking about obviously lung cancer today, but this situation applies to any cancer. We know that many patients who get certain types of cancers, they have risk factors. But could we not apply this message to anybody with any cancer? Look, these are the typical patients that get it, but you need to be aware. And if that's the case, does that not dilute the message that we're sending the same message to all cancers? Look, you're not in a high-risk group, but you could get it. So how do you get your message across to the patient who doesn't have risk factors, who doesn't smoke, who's not old, who has no reason to have that red flag, that alarm bell going off to say, hey, why am I going to pay attention to this guy?
Well, I mean, that's why I have, if I had my phone, I'd show you a picture of my wife. I mean, if we could put it up, you can put a picture of my wife. In November of 2010, I was not worrying about it. All right? There was a survivor that I spoke to that she actually knew one of the nonprofit organizations. She knew one of them, but had not really been engaged with them. A couple of years later, is diagnosed with lung cancer. So I'm not saying that you're actually going to get it. I'm saying that there's a possibility that you can get it. Are the numbers low? Yes, those numbers are low, but it's still possible.
Right.
And so this is something that you put on your radar. I'm not telling you something you need to worry about, that you're at your son's soccer game, at your daughter's, at her soccer game or the violin recital, that you're like, oh my goodness, lung cancer. But it's saying that it's real, it is here, and there are things that you can do in supporting it to make sure if it does happen to you, that your outcomes will be better in the future.
Now, through your education, your awareness, your advocacy, you're delivering many messages to many people. What are the sort of top 3 messages that you're trying to drive home that have the biggest impact, where when you're talking to somebody one-on-one and you're saying, look, listen to me, this is the message that I want to get home to you. What is it when you look at that person and you see the eyelids raised and that message is going in?
Well, the most important thing is anyone can get lung cancer. Anyone can get it. And again, for myself, unfortunately, I know that too well because my wife, who was in amazing shape, is diagnosed at 37 years old. So anyone can get it. The other one is that prevention is not enough. Prevention is great, absolutely, but it's not enough. So we need early detection, treatment, research, and survivorship. And the other thing is that we're all going to pass away at some time. And so I don't want you to be scared of it, that it's going to happen. But the fact that cancer can come into your life, let that remind you to continue to live and be in every day.